This is my first ASMR reading out loud video. I am just starting as an ASMR, so sorry I don't have the really cool and really high-tech microphones, but I will do my best with what I have, and I hope that what I bring will give you fun tingles and maybe take you back to those nights when you were young and your parents would sit next to you in bed and read you your favorite stories. So, what I am gonna do is read to you some of my favorite childhood tales. I know that probably most of you have heard of the Grimm brothers and their array of interesting fairy tales. Well, I am a very big fan of the Grimm brothers, and I'm lucky to own the entire collection of all their stories. So today I will read one or two for you. Let's see how the time goes. They're pretty short, so I'm sure I'll be able to get some in for you. Also, I apologize for any exterior noises. Like I said, I'm just working off of my computer microphone, but I hope this can still help you relax on your day, whether if you are going to sleep or just taking a nap. Anyways, let me get the story ready for you guys, and we will start in a bit. I got this book for Christmas as a Christmas present from my mother. It's absolutely beautiful hardcover with gold trimmings on the pages. I am very happy and very fortunate to have this book. It's also a match with my Shakespeare collections. I'm a big theater fan as well. Anyways, so I have the first page open here to The Frog Prince by the Grimm brothers. Long ago, when wishes often came true, there lived a king whose daughters were all handsome. But the youngest was so beautiful that the sun himself, who had seen everything, was bemused every time he shone over her because of her beauty. Near the royal castle there was a great dark wood, and in the wood under an old linen tree was a well. And when the day was hot, the king's daughter used to go forth into the wood and sit by the brink of the cool well. And if the time seemed long, she would take out a golden ball and throw it up and catch it again, and this was her favorite pastime. Now it happened one day that the golden ball, instead of falling back into the maiden's little hand, which had sent it aloft, dropped to the ground near the edge of the well and rolled in. The king's daughter followed it with her eyes as it sank, but the well was deep, so deep that the bottom could not be seen. Then she began to weep, and she wept and wept as she could never be comforted. And in the midst of her weeping she heard a voice saying to her, "What ails you, king's daughter? Your tears would melt a heart of stone." And when she looked to see where the voice came from, there was nothing but a frog stretching his thick, ugly head out of the water. "Oh, it is you, old waddler," she said. "I weep because my golden ball has fallen into the well." "Never mind, do not weep," answered the frog. "I can help you, but what will you give me if I fetch you your ball again?" "Whatever you like, dear frog," said she. "Any of my clothes, my pearls and jewels, or even the golden crown that I wear." "Your clothes, your pearls and jewels, and your golden crown are not for me," answered the frog. "But if you would love me and have me for your companion and playfellow, and let me sit by you at table and eat from your plate and drink from your cup and sleep in your little bed, if you would promise all this, then would I dive below the water and fetch you your golden ball again." "Oh yes," she answered, "I will promise it all, wherever you want, if you will only give me my ball again." But she thought to herself, "What nonsense he talks, as if he could do anything but sit in the water and croak with the other frogs, or could possibly be anyone's companion." But the frog, as soon as he heard her promise, drew his head under the water and sank down at the side. But after a while he came to the surface again with the ball in his mouth, and he threw it on the grass. The king's daughter was overjoyed to see her pretty plaything again, and she caught it up and ran off with it. "Stop, stop," cried the frog. "Take me up too. I cannot run as fast as you." But it was of no use, for croak, croak after her as he might, she would not listen to him, but made haste home, and very soon forgot all about the poor frog who had to betake himself to his well again. The next day, when the king's daughter was sitting at table with the king, and all the court and eating from her golden plate, there came something pitter-patter up the marble stairs, and then there came a knocking at the door, and a voice crying, "Youngest king's daughter, let me in." And she got up and ran to see who it could be, but when she opened the door, there was the frog sitting outside. Then she shut the door hastily and went back to her seat, feeling very uneasy. The king noticed how quickly her heart was beating and said, "My child, what are you afraid of? Is there a giant standing at the door ready to carry you away?" "Oh no," answered she, "no giant, but a horrid frog." "And what does the frog want?" asked the king. "Oh, dear father," answered she, "when I was sitting by the well yesterday and playing with my golden ball. It fell into the water, and while I was crying for the loss of it, the frog came and got it again for me, on condition I would let him be my companion. But I never thought that he could leave the water and come after me. But now, there he is outside the door, and he wants to come in to me." And then they all heard him knocking the second time and crying, "Youngest king's daughter, open to me. By the well water, what promise do you me? Youngest king's daughter, now open to me." "That which thou hast promised must thou perform," said the king. "So go now and let him in." So she went and opened the door, and the frog hopped in. Following at her heels, she reached her chair, then stopped and cried, "Lift me up to sit by you." But she delayed doing so until the king ordered her. When once the frog was on the chair, he wanted to get on the table, and there he sat and said, "Now push your golden plate a little nearer, so that we may eat together." And so she did, but everyone might see how unwilling she was, and the frog feasted heartily, but every morsel seemed to stick in her throat. "I have had enough now," said the frog at last, "and as I am tired, you must carry me to your room and make ready your silken bed, and we will lie down and go to sleep." Then the king's daughter began to weep, and was afraid of the cold frog, that nothing would satisfy him but he must sleep in her pretty clean bed. Now the king grew angry with her, saying, "That which thou hast promised in thy time of necessity must thou now perform." So she picked up the frog with her finger and thumb, carried him upstairs, and put him in a corner. And when she had laid down to sleep, he came creeping up, saying, "I am tired and want to sleep as much as you. Take me up, or I will tell your father." Then she felt beside herself with rage, and picked him up. She threw him with all her strength against the wall, crying, "Now will you be quiet, you horrid frog?" But as he fell, he ceased to be a frog, and became all at once a prince with beautiful kind eyes. And it came to pass that with her father's consent they became bride and bridegroom, and he told her how a wicked witch had bound her by her spell, and how no one but she alone could have released him, and that they two would go together to his father's kingdom. And there came to the door a carriage drawn by 8 white horses, with white plumes on their heads, and with golden harnesses, and behind the carriage was standing faithful Henry, the servant of the young prince. Now faithful Henry had suffered such care and pain when his master had turned into a frog, that he had been obliged to wear 3 iron bands over his heart, to keep it from breaking with trouble and anxiety. When the carriage started to take the prince to his kingdom, and faithful Henry had helped them both in, he got up behind, and was full of joy as his master's deliverance. And when they had gone a part of the way, the prince heard a sound at the back of the carriage, as if something had broken, and he turned around and cried, "Henry, the wheel must be breaking." But Henry answered, "The wheel does not break. 'Tis the band around my heart, that to lessen its ache, when I grieve for your sake, I bound round my heart." Again, and yet once again, there was the same sound, and the prince thought it must be the wheel breaking, but it was the breaking of the other bands from the faithful Henry's heart, because he was so relieved and happy. The end. That was quite an interesting tale. I know most people don't remember or know the true story of the Frog Prince. dragons. Most people think it's very much like the Disney version, but it's actually quite different. Now, my next tale for you is a little bit shorter and probably even less known. It's called The Giant and the Tailor. Now, once upon a time, a certain tailor who was great at boasting but poor at doing, took it into his head to go abroad for a while and look about the world. As soon as he could manage it, he left his workshop and wandered on his way, over hill and dale, sometimes hither, sometimes thither, but ever on and on. Once, when he was out, he perceived in the blue distance a steep hill, and behind it a tower reaching to the clouds, which rose up out of a wild dark forest. "Thunder and lightning!" cried the tailor. "What is that?" And as he was strongly goaded by curiosity, he went boldly towards it. But what made the tailor open his eyes and mouth, when he came near it, was to see that the tower had legs, and leapt in one bound over the steep hill, and was now standing an all-powerful giant before him. "What do you want here, you little fly's leg?" cried the giant, with a voice as if it were thundering on every side. The tailor whimpered, "I want just to look about, and see if I can earn a bit of bread for myself in this forest." "If this is what you are after," said the giant, "you may have a place with me. If it must be, why not? What wages shall I receive?" "You shall hear what wages you shall have. Every year 365 days, and when it is leap year, one more into the bargain. Does that suit you?" "All right," replied the tailor, and thought in his own mind, "A man must cut his coat according to his cloth. I will try to get away as fast as I can." On this giant said to him, "Go, little ragamuffin, and fetch me a jug of water." "Had I not better bring the well itself at once, and the spring too?" asked the boaster, and went with the pitcher to the water. "What? The well and the spring too?" growled the giant in his beard, for he was rather clownish and stupid, and began to be afraid. "That knave is not a fool. He has a wizard in his body. Be on your guard, old Hans. This is no serving man for you." When the tailor had brought the water, the giant bade him go into the forest and cut a couple of blocks of wood and bring them back. "Why not the whole forest at once with one stroke? The whole forest, young and old, with all that there is, both rough and smooth?" asked the little tailor, and went to cut the wood. "What? The whole forest, young and old, with all that there is, both rough and smooth, and the well and its spring too?" growled the credulous giant in his beard, and was still more terrified. "Knave can do much more than bake apples, and he's a wizard in his body. Be on your guard, old Hans. This is no serving man for you." When the tailor had brought the wood, the giant commanded him to shoot 2 or 3 wild boars for supper. "Why not rather 1,000 at one shot, and bring them all here?" inquired the ostentatious tailor. "What?" cried the timid giant in great terror. "Let well alone tonight, and lie down to rest." The giant was so terribly alarmed that he could not close an eye all night long for thinking that what would be the best way to get rid of this accursed sorcerer of a servant. Time brings counsel. Next morning the giant and the tailor went to a marsh, round which stood a number of willow trees. Then said the giant, "Hark you, tailor, seat yourself on one of the willow branches. I long of all things to see you're big enough to bend it down. All at once the tailor was sitting on it, holding his breath and making himself so heavy that the bough bent down. When, however, he was compelled to draw breath, it hurried him, for unfortunately he had not put his goose in his pocket, so high into the air that he never was seen again, and this to the great delight of the giant. If the tailor has not fallen down again, he must still be hovering about in the air. The end. Another silly and funny story from the Grimm brothers. Anyways, I guess that's all I will read to you tonight. But I do hope these fairy tales bring nice little dreams of long lost forests and hidden creatures